At 11:47 p.m., in a hospital corridor that smelled of antiseptic and broken dreams, Marcus Chin found himself face to face with the man who had destroyed his life 15 years ago. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead like dying stars, casting shadows that danced between forgiveness and revenge. The soft beeping of heart monitors echoed through the silence, while the scent of jasmine flowers from the nearby chapel drifted through the air, carried by a wind that shouldn't exist in this sterile place. Welcome to Whispers of Dharma, where stories of karma, compassion, and rebirth are softly told to heal the soul. James Morrison lay unconscious in room 314, tubes and wires connecting him to machines that kept his broken body alive after the car accident. The same James Morrison who had stolen Marcus's wife, destroyed his marriage, and left him with nothing but rage and the taste of betrayal. But tonight, something impossible was happening in this hospital. Something that would challenge everything Marcus thought he knew about justice, revenge, and the mysterious ways that karma works through the human heart. How do you forgive someone who took everything you loved? And what happens when karma gives you the power to choose between saving a life and letting justice finally be served? St. Mary's Hospital stood like a beacon of hope in the rain-soaked streets of Portland, Oregon. The autumn drizzle had been falling for 3 days straight, creating rivers of reflection on the sidewalks where Marcus Chin walked alone, carrying the weight of a phone call that had changed everything. The call had come at 9:15 p.m. from Dr. Sarah Williams. "Mr. Chin, I know this is unusual, but James Morrison has been in a serious accident. He's asking for you." Marcus was 52 now, a successful architect whose steady hands had rebuilt not just buildings but his own life after the devastation of 15 years ago. His graying hair was always perfectly styled, his suits impeccable, his demeanor calm and controlled. But inside, beneath the carefully constructed exterior, lived a wound that had never properly healed, the wound of betrayal by someone he had once called his best friend. The hospital's third floor was quiet, except for the soft footsteps of night nurses making their rounds. The walls were painted in soothing beige tones, but tonight they seemed to pulse with an energy that made Marcus's skin crawl. Room 1314 was at the end of the corridor, past the small chapel where families prayed for miracles, past the waiting area where loved ones held vigil through the dark hours. As Marcus approached the room, he could hear the steady rhythm of the ventilator keeping James alive. Through the small window, he could see the man who had once been his closest friend, his business partner, his children's honorary uncle. James Morrison, now 51, looked smaller somehow, diminished by the accident that had left him with multiple fractures, internal bleeding, and a traumatic brain injury that the doctors said might leave him permanently changed. The irony wasn't lost on Marcus. 15 years ago, James had taken everything from him: his wife Lisa, his 2 young children, his construction business, his faith and friendship and love. And now, fate had delivered James into his hands, broken and helpless, dependent on the very man he had betrayed for his survival. Because what the doctors didn't know was that Marcus Chin was the only person in Portland who had James's rare blood type. And what James didn't know was that his former best friend held the power of life and death in his hands. To understand the depth of betrayal that had poisoned Marcus's heart for 15 years, we must travel back to 1998, when two young men with big dreams and bigger hearts started a construction company with nothing but hope and a shared vision of building something beautiful together. Marcus and James had been inseparable since college, two ambitious 20-somethings who worked 18-hour days and split everything 50-50: profits, losses, dreams, and the unshakable bond of brotherhood. Marcus had married Lisa in the spring of 1995, a wedding where James served as best man and gave a toast that brought tears to every eye in the room. To Marcus and Lisa, James had said, raising his champagne glass, "May your love be as solid as the foundations we build, and may your friendship with me be the steel that keeps it strong forever." The three of them had been inseparable. Weekends at the lake, holidays together, sharing the intimate details of their lives like true family. By 1998, Chin and Morrison Construction was thriving. They specialized in eco-friendly homes, building sustainable communities that would stand for generations. Marcus handled the creative design, while James managed the business operations. Their wives were pregnant at the same time, Lisa expecting her second child, while James's wife Helen carried their first. The future seemed golden, stretching ahead of them like an endless summer day. But beneath the surface, something toxic was growing. James had been struggling with gambling addiction for months, a secret he kept from everyone, including his wife and business partner. The construction loans, the operating funds, the money they had saved for equipment, James had been slowly siphoning it all away, feeding an addiction that consumed everything in its path. The truth came out on a Tuesday morning in October, when Marcus arrived at their office to find federal agents seizing their computers and files. The IRS had frozen all their accounts. The bank was calling in their loans. And James, his best friend, his brother in all but blood, was nowhere to be found. The next discovery was even more devastating. Lisa, 8 months pregnant with their daughter, sat Marcus down that evening with tears streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "James came to me 3 months ago. He said he loved me. He said you didn't appreciate what you had. He said he could give me a better life." The betrayal was complete and surgical in its precision. James hadn't just stolen money. He had systematically dismantled Marcus's entire world. The business collapsed under the weight of debt and legal troubles. Lisa filed for divorce and moved in with James within a month. Marcus's 2 children, Emma, then 6, and baby Sarah, were suddenly calling another man daddy. The courts awarded Lisa primary custody, citing Marcus's financial instability and inability to provide a secure home environment. James, who had managed to hide his addiction and present himself as the stable, reliable alternative, became the father figure to Marcus's children. Within a year, Marcus went from having everything to having nothing: no family, no business, no trust in human nature itself. For 15 years, Marcus had built his life around avoiding this pain. He moved to a different neighborhood, changed his career to solo architectural practice, dated occasionally, but never remarried. He saw his children twice a month under supervised visitation arrangements that felt more like business transactions than family time. And every night, he fell asleep wondering how someone he had trusted completely could destroy him so thoroughly without a moment's hesitation. The phone call from Dr. Williams had shattered 15 years of carefully maintained distance. "Mr. Chen, I realize this is highly unusual, but James Morrison has been seriously injured in a car accident. He's been unconscious for 2 days, but when he briefly woke up this afternoon, he kept repeating your name. He says he needs to tell you something urgent." Marcus had stared at his phone for 10 minutes after hanging up, his hands trembling with a mixture of emotions he couldn't name: rage, curiosity, And underneath it all, something that felt disturbingly like concern for the man who had stolen his life. The drive to the hospital took 25 minutes through Portland's rain-slicked streets. With each mile, Marcus felt the carefully constructed walls around his heart beginning to crack. What could James possibly need to tell him after 15 years of silence? What words could bridge the chasm of betrayal that had defined both their lives? Dr. Williams met him in the lobby, a kind-faced woman in her 50s whose eyes held the weight of delivering difficult news to families every day. "Mr. Chin, thank you for coming. I need to be direct with you about something." She led him to a quiet corner near the chapel where the scent of jasmine incense created an almost ethereal atmosphere. "James has type AB negative blood," Dr. Williams continued. "It's extremely rare. Only about 1% of the population has it. His injuries require immediate surgery, but we've exhausted our blood bank reserves. Without a compatible donor, he may not survive the night." She handed Marcus a medical form. "I'm required to ask all potential donors if they know anyone with compatible blood type." Marcus stared at the form, his heart pounding against his ribs like a caged bird. He knew his own blood type, AB negative, the same rare type that ran in his family, the same type he had donated regularly for years to help other people's medical emergencies. Fate had delivered James Morrison into his hands with the precision of divine justice. "Doctor," Marcus said quietly, "I have AB negative blood, but before I decide anything, I need to see him. I need to hear what he has to say." The walk down the corridor to room 314 felt like a journey through time itself. With each step, Marcus felt the weight of 15 years of anger, resentment, and carefully nursed hatred pressing down on his shoulders. At the door, he paused, his hand on the handle, knowing that whatever happened next would change both their lives forever. Because this was karma in its purest form, the universe offering him a choice between mercy and justice, between healing and revenge. And for the first time in 15 years, Marcus Chin had the power to decide whether James Morrison lived or died. James Morrison looked nothing like the confident, charismatic man who had stolen Marcus's family 15 years ago. The accident had broken more than just his bones. It had stripped away all pretense, leaving behind something raw and vulnerable. His face was swollen and bruised, his left arm in a cast, and tubes snaked from his mouth and nose to the machines keeping him alive. But his eyes were open now, and when he saw Marcus standing in the doorway, tears began streaming down his cheeks. "Marcus," he whispered through the oxygen mask, "you came. I wasn't sure you would come."
For a long moment, Marcus said nothing. He simply stood there, looking at the wreckage of the man who had once been his best friend, feeling emotions he hadn't allowed himself to experience in over a decade. Anger was there, yes, but also something unexpected, a deep sadness for the friendship they had lost, the brotherhood that had been destroyed by greed and betrayal. "The doctor says you need my blood to survive," Marcus said finally, his voice carefully controlled. "She says without a donor, you'll die tonight. Tell me, James, why should I save the life of the man who destroyed mine?" James closed his eyes, and when he opened them again, they held the weight of 15 years of guilt and regret. "Because I need to tell you the truth," he whispered. "The truth about everything, about why I really took Lisa, about what happened to the money, about the real reason I've been trying to find you for the last 5 years." What followed was a confession that shattered everything Marcus thought he knew about the betrayal that had defined his adult life. James spoke slowly, his voice broken by pain and the effort of breathing, but his words carried the ring of absolute truth. The gambling addiction was real, but it wasn't what destroyed our business. That had been something else entirely. I was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's 15 years ago. The doctors said I had maybe 10 years before I lost everything: my memory, my personality, myself. I knew I was going to become a burden to everyone I loved. I knew I was going to forget you, forget Lisa, forget my children. Marcus felt his legs weaken, and he sank into the chair beside James's bed. This wasn't the confession he had expected. This wasn't the story of greed and selfishness he had carried in his heart for 15 years. So, you decided to push everyone away first. I thought if I made you hate me, if I made Lisa choose between us, at least she would have someone to take care of her and the children when I was gone. I thought if I destroyed our friendship completely, you wouldn't have to watch me disappear piece by piece. I thought it would be easier for everyone if the James Morrison you loved just disappeared. The room fell silent except for the steady beeping of monitors. Marcus felt his carefully constructed narrative of betrayal crumbling like a house of cards in a hurricane. But you stole our money. You left us with nothing. I gave it all to Lisa. Every penny went into a trust fund for your children. I made her promise never to tell you where it came from. I thought if I was going to disappear anyway, at least I could make sure your family was provided for. I thought I was being noble. Marcus felt tears he hadn't shed in 15 years burning behind his eyes. The man he had hated, the friend he had lost, the enemy who had haunted his dreams, none of it was real. James Morrison hadn't betrayed him out of greed or malice. He had betrayed him out of love, out of a desperate attempt to protect the people he cared about from the tragedy he knew was coming. The Alzheimer's? Marcus asked, though he already knew the answer from looking at James's confused, frightened eyes. It's taken almost everything now, James admitted. I forget Lisa's name sometimes. I don't recognize Helen anymore. But I've never forgotten you, Marcus. I've never forgotten what I took from you. And I've been trying to find a way to give it back. The revelation hung in the air between them like a prayer seeking absolution. Marcus sat in stunned silence, trying to process 15 years of misdirected anger and resentment. The man he had hated was dying, had been dying slowly for 15 years, and every choice he had made, every seemingly selfish, destructive decision had been motivated by love. "There's more," James whispered, his voice growing weaker as the pain medication began to wear off. Lisa knows the truth now. She's known for 5 years. She tried to tell you, tried to explain, but you wouldn't take her calls. Marcus remembered those calls, dozens of them over the past few years, always from Lisa, always left unanswered. He had assumed she was calling to ask for more money or to arrange changes in the custody schedule. He had never imagined she was calling to deliver the truth that would heal his broken heart. She wants to ask for your forgiveness, James continued. Not for me, she knows I don't deserve it, but for herself, for going along with my plan, for not fighting harder to tell you the truth. Your children, Emma and Sarah, they ask about you every day. They never stopped loving you, Marcus. They never stopped wanting their real father back. The machines around James's bed began beeping more urgently, and Dr. Williams appeared in the doorway with two nurses. "Mr. Chen, I'm sorry, but we need to take Mr. Morrison to surgery immediately. His condition is deteriorating rapidly. Have you decided about the blood donation?" Marcus looked at James, seeing not the enemy who had destroyed his life, but the friend who had tried to save everyone he loved in the only way his diseased mind could conceive. This was the moment Karma had been building toward for 15 years. Not revenge, but the opportunity for healing that could only come through forgiveness. "James," Marcus said, taking his former friend's hand for the first time in 15 years, "I forgive you for everything. And I'm going to save your life, not because you deserve it, but because forgiveness isn't about what people deserve. It's about what love makes possible." James's eyes filled with tears of relief and gratitude. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you for being the man I always knew you were. The man I could never be." As the medical team prepared to wheel James to surgery, he gripped Marcus's hand with surprising strength. "There's one more thing," he said urgently. "In my wallet, there's a letter. I've been carrying it for 5 years, waiting for a chance to give it to you. It's from Emma. She wrote it when she turned 16. She says she understands now why I took her away from you, but she wants to come home." 3 hours later, Marcus sat in the hospital chapel, holding a worn envelope that contained his 16-year-old daughter's handwriting and 15 years of suppressed hope. The blood donation had gone smoothly. 2 units of his AB-negative blood now flowing through James's veins, carrying with it not just the physical means of survival, but the spiritual essence of forgiveness made manifest. Emma's letter was dated 2 years ago, written on her 16th birthday, but never sent because she hadn't known how to find him. "Dear Dad," it began. "I know you probably think I forgot about you, but I never did. James told me the truth about why he took us away from you. He made Mom promise not to tell us until we were old enough to understand. I understand now, and I want you to know that I never stopped loving you. I never stopped being your daughter." The letter went on to describe Emma's memories of their time together before the divorce. Weekend camping trips, bedtime stories, the way he used to let her help with architectural drawings by coloring in the trees around his buildings. She wrote about Sarah, now 15, who had only vague memories of Marcus, but who had always felt incomplete, like a puzzle missing its most important piece. "James is getting sicker," Emma had written. "The doctors say he won't remember us much longer. Mom says it's time to tell you everything, time to heal our family the way it should have been healed 15 years ago. I don't know if you can forgive us for staying away so long, but I hope you can find room in your heart for 2 daughters who never stopped needing their father." Dr. Williams found Marcus in the chapel as dawnlight began filtering through the stained glass windows. "The surgery was successful," she reported with a tired smile. "Your blood saved his life. He's stable now, though the Alzheimer's progression means he may not remember much of tonight's conversation. But there's something else. 2 young women have been in the waiting room all night. They said they're your daughters." Marcus felt his heart stop, then restart with a rhythm that seemed to shake his entire body. Through the chapel's small window, he could see the waiting area where 2 figures sat huddled together, one tall and blonde like Lisa, the other petite with dark hair that looked exactly like his mother's. Emma and Sarah, his children, his daughters who had never stopped loving him, never stopped waiting for him to come home. This was karma's true gift, not the opportunity for revenge, but the chance for healing that could only come through forgiveness. By choosing to save James's life, Marcus had opened the door to reclaiming his own. The sun was rising over Portland as Marcus walked slowly toward the hospital waiting room, each step carrying him closer to the family he had lost and the forgiveness he had never dared to hope for. Through the large windows, he could see Emma and Sarah sitting side by side, holding hands the way sisters do when they're scared and hopeful at the same time. Emma looked up first, and Marcus saw his own eyes looking back at him from a face that was no longer the 6-year-old he remembered, but a beautiful young woman who carried herself with quiet strength. Sarah was 15 now, tall and graceful, with the artistic hands that ran in his family, hands he had dreamed of teaching to sketch and build and create. For a moment, they simply looked at each other across the years of separation, 3 people who had been torn apart by circumstances beyond their control and brought back together by the mysterious workings of karma and compassion. Then Emma stood up, tears streaming down her face, and whispered the word Marcus had been longing to hear for 15 years. Dad. The reunion was tender and awkward and beautiful in the way that healing always is, imperfect but genuine, careful but full of love. Sarah was shy at first, uncertain how to relate to a father she barely remembered. But when Marcus showed her the architectural sketches he always carried in his briefcase, her face lit up with recognition. "I love to draw too," she said quietly. "Mom always said I got it from you." They talked until the morning shift nurses arrived, sharing 15 years of missed birthdays, graduations, first dates, heartbreaks, and dreams. Emma told him about her acceptance to art school, Sarah about her plans to study environmental engineering. They were strangers and family simultaneously, connected by blood and love, but separated by time and circumstance. Lisa arrived at 8 a.m., looking older than Marcus remembered, but still beautiful in the way that comes from wisdom earned through suffering. She approached tentatively, unsure of her welcome after 15 years of silence. "Marcus," she said softly, "I'm so sorry for everything, for not fighting James harder, for not telling you the truth sooner, for letting our children grow up without their father." Marcus looked at this woman who had once been his wife, the mother of his children, the partner of his youth who had been caught in an impossible situation and made the only choice she thought would protect their family. "We all did what we thought was right," he said quietly. "James was trying to protect us from his illness. You were trying to protect the children from poverty and instability. I was trying to protect myself from more pain. But pain is how we learn compassion," he continued, understanding flooding through him like warm light. "And compassion is how we learn to forgive, not just others, but ourselves." He looked around at his reunited family, at the hospital where James lay recovering from surgery, at the chaplain's office where he had donated blood to save the life of his former enemy. 15 years ago, James made a choice to protect us by pushing us away. Tonight, I made a choice to protect him by bringing us back together. The circle was complete, the karma balanced, the healing finally begun. 6 months later, Marcus received a phone call that would put the final piece of the karmic puzzle into place. Dr. Williams's voice was gentle but urgent. "Mr. Chen, I think you should come to the hospital. He's having a lucid day, and he's asking for you." Marcus found James sitting in the hospital garden, looking out at the roses that were blooming in the late spring sunshine. The Alzheimer's had progressed significantly. Most days, James didn't recognize anyone, lost in a fog of confusion and fragmented memories. But today, his eyes were clear, and when he saw Marcus approaching, he smiled with the same warmth that once defined their brotherhood. "James," he said, as if no time had passed since their last real conversation 15 years ago. "I wanted to thank you for saving my life, for forgiving me, for being the friend I always knew you were, even when I couldn't be the friend you deserved." They talked for an hour about their children, their lives, the business they had once built together. James remembered everything with crystal clarity: their dreams, their mistakes, the love that had survived even the deepest betrayal. As the afternoon sun began to set, painting the garden in golden light, James reached into his pocket and pulled out a small wrapped package. "I've been carrying this for 16 years, he said, placing it gently in Marcus's hands. "I bought it the week before everything fell apart. I wanted to give it to you for your birthday, but then the Alzheimer's diagnosis came, and I thought it was better to let our friendship die clean, rather than watch it fade away." Inside the package was a watch, not expensive, but engraved with words that brought tears to Marcus's eyes. "To Marcus, my brother in all the ways that matter. Time changes everything except the bonds forged by true friendship. By James." Below the inscription was a date, October 15th, 1998. The day before James had disappeared with Lisa and the children. "You bought this before you knew," Marcus said, understanding dawning like sunrise. "You bought this when you still thought we'd grow old together, build our business, watch our children become friends." "I bought it because I knew even then that some friendships are stronger than time, stronger than betrayal, stronger than death itself," James replied. "I bought it because I believed in rebirth, not just of souls, but of love, of friendship, of families torn apart by impossible choices." That evening, Marcus sat in his rebuilt home, a house that he had designed and built with Emma and Sarah's help, where Lisa now came for family dinners, where James spent his remaining good days surrounded by the people who loved him despite everything. The watch ticked steadily on his wrist, measuring time that had been lost and found, marking moments of forgiveness that had healed two souls and restored a family. If you believe that karma always guides us, please subscribe and leave a reflection so we can awaken together.
Marcus Chen learned that forgiveness is not weakness, but the strongest force in the universe, powerful enough to heal betrayal, restore families, and transform enemies back into brothers. James Morrison learned that love sometimes requires us to make choices that look like betrayal, but are actually sacrifice. And in the mysterious workings of karma, compassion, and rebirth, two souls who had been torn apart by fear and disease found their way back to each other, proving that some bonds transcend time, forgiveness heals all wounds, and love, true love, always finds a way home. This is Whispers of Dharma. Every story is a seed of wisdom. See you again in the next whisper.